If I had 90 days to lose belly fat, this is exactly what I would do. You've probably pictured having abs or your shirt off without any hesitation. But if you were at 28% body fat right now, that is not where 90 days gets you. So I won't promise you that you're going to have washboard abs, because there are a few factors that determine how lean you're going to get. And there are two common starting zones that I'll show you so you can see which one you're in. So let's start with what most guys get wrong before they even begin. So most guys dive straight in headfirst without running the numbers on what 90 days of a properly run deficit actually gets you. A sustainable, well-managed cut moves at about 1 to 2 pounds per week, or half to 1 kilo, without making you starved or eating away at your muscle mass. So over 90 days, that's somewhere between 11 to 24 pounds or 5 to 11 kilos of fat. That is a great result no matter who you are or where you're starting. But that same 11 to 24 pounds range means something different depending on one detail that most guys are overlooking. There are two common starting zones. So you might be sitting at 18, 20% body fat. You've already got some nice shape, maybe some size, but your abs are not showing. Or you might be starting at 25 to 30% body fat, still carrying a bit of a gut, and you're further away from that line than you would like to admit. Clock is identical for both zones, but what's realistic in the 90 days isn't. If you're below 20%, that gets you somewhere around 14 to 15% with visible ab outlines, rest, not just in good lighting. And if you're at 25% body fat and above, that same 90 days gets you potentially around 20% or close to it, with visibly different silhouette, wearing a t-shirt, but not quite lean with muscular definition just yet. So whichever zone you're in, if you're already training and you're eating healthy, but you just can't shake the belly, that is not a discipline problem, that is a system problem. And that is exactly what I fix for men with my one-to-one coaching. Links in the description if you want it solved properly. But this next problem can cost you a lot of time and energy for little results. So day one of a 90-day plan usually starts with a workout, which could be a mistake if you haven't got the most important part figured out. So you've probably opened up a fitness app before, plugged in your age and your weight, and just trusted whatever number it's given you. Now, most of these calculators easily overshoot, sometimes by a few hundred calories a day, because they can't see your actual lifestyle, your stress, metabolic conditions, how your body responds, and all these other factors, right? So guys start with day one eating above their real number, then they wonder why weeks later things have barely moved. Or they start off so aggressively that by week 3, they're ready to go on a 3-day binge bender from just feeling starved and all these cravings. So before you go hard in the gym, you need to dial in your calorie deficit budget. In the same way that you wouldn't greenlight spending in your business or buying an asset without knowing the actual numbers first. And the best way to do that is to track exactly what you eat for 7 days before changing anything. No guessing and no trying to do it in your head. And this gives you your real number, usually within about 100 to 200 calories based on what your maintenance is. And everything else in the next 90 days gets built on that, right? Then you can dial in your budget by shaving off 550 calories just to get started. And once that number's locked in, the next thing that trips guys up is what they think they're actually allowed to eat. You don't need to eat chicken, broccoli, and rice every day to lose fat in 90 days. You've probably seen plans like that before, or maybe even tried them yourself and realize it gets super boring really fast. But eating the same meals on repeat might actually work in your favor. A study published in Health Psychology tracked 112 adults over 12 weeks, and they found that the ones who repeated meals lost 5.9% of their body weight compared to the 4.3% for the group who kept switching things up all the time. So the extra 100 calories of daily fluctuations cut their results by about 0.5%. It's not major, but it counts. Less variety meant fewer decisions and meant less room to slip up and make mistakes. However, if your week includes family dinners, work lunches, traveling, events, taking the kids to sports and all these things, family stuff, church on Sundays, then identical meals every day isn't built to survive that. And fat loss doesn't come just from eating clean food. It comes from hitting your deficit number consistently, whatever the food happens to be. So just pick 3 or 4 dinners that you actually like and can kind of make on autopilot, 1 or 2 breakfast options, a couple lunch options, stuff that you don't really have to think about, and then build these meals around your protein source first, because most guys aim for, say, a gram of protein per pound of body weight, because that's the number that gets repeated everywhere online. But the research doesn't actually support that. The real number where the benefits level off is meaningfully lower. Aim for around 0.7 grams per pound of body weight or 1.6 grams per kilo of lean body weight, not total body weight. If you don't know what your lean body weight is exactly, just knock off about 20 to 25% of your total weight first, and that's going to get you close enough. Now, you can always eat more protein if you want, but more isn't necessarily going to make you get bigger muscles if your training isn't taken care of. And taking this approach means that nothing gets eliminated. There's no food groups that you're banning and saying, I'm never going to eat this. You just stop rebuilding your diet from scratch every day or every week. So your food is dialed in, but there's a mistake still waiting for you in the gym. Training 5 days a week might sound like the best move when you've only got 90 days given to lose as much belly fat as possible. But more sessions doesn't mean more fat loss. Plenty of guys hit the gym every single week or go and do marathons, yet can't lose the gut. Cardio and workouts only burn calories while you're actually doing them. Then it stops the second that you're done. In 30 to 45 minutes, you may be burning 150 to 300 calories, and there's no meaningful afterburn once the session is over. So your diet is what's going to create this deficit for you. Training is what builds and protects your muscle while you're in this deficit phase. So with a minor added calorie burn from each session that you do, but only on the training days, obviously. Also, if you're grinding 5 or 6 days a week and you're still not seeing enough change, then more effort isn't the missing piece, because you can only build so much muscle in a given month, even with ideal conditions. Based on natural muscle building research, a first year lifter can add around 2 pounds of muscle per month on average over the year. But that drops to about 1 pound by year 2, and it keeps halving from there, approximately. And those numbers are in a surplus with optimal conditions. However, in a deficit for fat loss, it's even less. So for the guys I coach working 40 to 50 hours a week with a family who have events to go to, who do travel often, just 2 to 3 full body sessions a week, around 45 minutes each, is enough if you are getting stronger session to session. 3 days of clear progress beats 5 days of just sweating it out doing random stuff. So keep it to just a handful of your compound lifts, the same ones that you want to get good at, so just sticking to the basics, and then add reps or weight whenever you can. Muscle is a long-term project. Fat loss is a short to medium-term one. And this 90 days is mostly about the second. But even doing sessions perfectly won't get you far if this next part isn't dialed in too. This one is boring, but that is exactly why almost nobody does it. You can have the best diet and workouts, but still stall out, especially if you have a desk job, a long commute to work, back-to-back meetings, where you spend your evenings mostly on the couch. Your daily movement can fall off a cliff without you noticing it. And that drop alone is the difference between a deficit and accidental maintenance, even with perfect food tracking and eating healthy and all that. So you want to aim for at least 10,000 steps per day as a weekly average, and you want to keep it consistent, not 3,000 one day, 19,000 the next. You don't need to obsess over it, but keeping your calorie burn stable is what helps your diet stay in an actual deficit and consistently shed belly fat. And this isn't about doing more cardio, it's about moving more throughout your entire day at a casual pace for any reason that you can find. Adding intense cardio is more likely to deplete your glycogen and then fuel your hunger, compared to low, moderate intensity movement. Guys who get stuck despite doing everything else right are almost always overlooking this part. But even with your steps dialed in, there's one moment coming for you that's going to test you more than your diet or your training ever will. Somewhere around week 3 or 4, you're going to feel like you have earned some special enjoyment for all of your consistent efforts. And that is not a weakness. It's just your body and your mind responding correctly to weeks of being in a deficit, where cravings start to ramp up a little bit, your willpower might drop, temptations are all around you, and your brain starts to negotiate to justify breaking your diet. The problem isn't the craving itself, it's that most guys respond to it in that moment, and it's unplanned, and then you call it earned. Or worse, they think that they've lost control and just blew it, when really nobody had a gun to your head. Just let the impulses win in that particular moment. The problem is, one unplanned blowout can undo 3 to 5 days of progress and take another few days just to get you back to where you were before that. If you do that every few weeks over the 90 days, you've cut your progress in half or less. The guys who stay on track don't white knuckle through this feeling. They just sit down and plan it out and they factor it in. So a scheduled 1 to 2 day diet break or a high calorie refeed day, say every 4 weeks, decided in advance and planned, not negotiated at 9 p.m. on a Friday, kind of does the same job for satisfaction as just a random blowout does, without the damage. So even having different varieties of smaller portions of food can be satisfying enough. Kind of like my 2 pieces of dark chocolate per day routine so that I don't deprive myself and then binge later. And once you've got that under control, there's still one last thing you need to know before this day 90 actually arrives. Whichever body fat range you're starting on, you'll realize that 90 days was never meant to be the entire journey. But if you do this properly, something will change. That has nothing to do with the mirror. You stop being the guy hoping that huge effort will eventually just magically pay off, and you become the guy who's running an actual system, tracking, adjusting, trusting your own evidence and data over time, ignoring the noise, and doing all this in a way that fits your real life. Because 90 days will fly by, and what you do next will determine whether you actually keep your results or drift back to where you started. So it is a lifestyle. This is never about racing to the finish line. And if you already run tight systems in multiple areas of life, this is just one place you haven't applied it yet. But if you're not seeing the results you expected, despite training often, following the set diets, then you need to fix your system or install one that's not there using a data-driven method. One that gives you week-to-week feedback on your progress instead of going all out at it and guessing, so that you start to recognize your true self in the mirror each day. And that is what the guys inside my one-to-one program are building right now. I only take on a handful of one-to-one clients, and my method isn't for guys who want to keep experimenting alone or are looking for in-person trainers. If you're done doing that and ready to get it solved properly, the link is in the description below this video. Then go watch this video next to see the brutally honest timeline to lose belly fat, all the way to 11%, 10% body fat.